In a world that never sleeps, where screens glow until dawn and anxiety slips between the sheets, there exists an ancient philosophy that invites us to rest with serenity. Welcome to Secrets of Stoic Wisdom for Better Sleep Star. This documentary will guide you through the corridors of time, from the dusty streets of Athens in the 3rd century BCE, to modern bedrooms lit by soft lamps, in search of a forgotten truth, that sleeping well isn't just about routines, but about how we inhabit our minds before closing our eyes. Over this journey, we'll explore the teachings of figures like Zeno, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, not as distant thinkers of the past, but as nightly companions whispering advice to lighten the soul before sleep. Take a deep breath, turn off distractions, and prepare to journey where philosophy becomes balm for insomnia, and silence, a teacher. Episode 1. Zeno's Night. In the heart of Athens' Agora, under starlit skies and sun-baked clay roofs, a man walked in silence after dusk. It was Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, around 300 BCE. He had lost everything in a shipwreck: his fortune, his cargo, his former life. Yet instead of sinking into despair, he chose to rebuild himself through reason, and through the night. For Zeno, the day ended with a sacred practice, reviewing his actions in the light of virtue, without judgment, only observation. He would sit beside an oil lamp and ask, have I lived with coherence? Have I yielded to fear, or acted with wisdom? This nightly introspection wasn't punishment. It was liberation. By releasing what he couldn't control, his mind grew lighter, and sleep came naturally. Today, millennia later, that same practice can be our anchor before bed. Imagine for a moment the noise of modern life. Notifications, emails, deadlines, distractions. Everything conspires to keep us trapped in the future or anchored in the past. But Zeno taught that night is a sanctuary, a space to return to the present. It wasn't about forgetting, but about placing each experience in its proper place, outside the bedroom. In his moonlit talks with students, he often said, what you cannot change at bedtime, doesn't deserve your pillow. This simple, profound phrase captures an essential Stoic truth: the distinction between what depends on us and what doesn't. Before sleep, the Stoics didn't fight the world. They released it with grace. And in that act of letting go, they found peace. Thus, insomnia wasn't an enemy, but a signal we were still clinging to something we didn't need to carry to bed. Stoic philosophy was born in a time of chaos, after Alexander the Great's death, as the Greek world fractured into unstable kingdoms. Amid that uncertainty, Zeno taught that true security lies not in external circumstances, but in inner order. At dusk, his followers walked toward the painted porch, not to debate politics or wealth, but to train their minds for stillness. Each night was an exercise in humility, acknowledging mistakes without guilt, celebrating successes without vanity. This mental preparation was their sleep ritual. They needed no teas or ambient sounds, because their peace came from a deep conviction that the day had been lived with purpose. And that certainty was the finest pillow. Today, in our tech-filled bedrooms, that same intention can transform night into a haven of serenity. What would you do if you lost everything? Zeno didn't imagine it. He lived it. and instead of fleeing pain, he integrated it. This is the essence of Stoic nightly preparation, accepting the day exactly as it was, without demanding it had been different. Before sleep, Stoics practiced a kind of a symbolic surrender. They'd close their eyes and silently say, "Oh, what happened, or is no longer mine." It was an act of non-attachment, not from indifference, but from wisdom. Because they knew that carrying yesterday's burden steals rest from the body and clarity from tomorrow. In our age of overstimulation, this inner gesture is more vital than ever. Each night, you can do the same. Review your day with compassion, thank it for its lessons, and release what no longer serves. It's not about erasing, but archiving. Thus, the bed stops being a battlefield and becomes a temple of rest. Zeno slept in a simple room, without luxuries, noise, or pretense. His bed was firm, his mind firmer still. But his strength came not from control, but from acceptance. He understood that night is not an extension of the day, it's its natural conclusion. And like any conclusion, it deserves ceremony. So every evening was a chance to close chapters. In his imagined journal, since written diaries came later, he would have noted not complaints, but reflections. Today I acted with courage. Today I yielded to anger. Tomorrow, I'll adjust my course. This inner writing, or this soul accounting, was his antidote to insomnia. And it still works today. Because when the mind knows it has done its work, it permits rest. So Zeno's wisdom calls to us, from the shadows of the past, to sleep with integrity. Episode 2. Seneca's Evening Letters. Rome, 62 CE. The city boils with ambition, betrayal, and fleeting splendor. In a villa away from the hills, a man writes by lamplight, while the world sleeps or stays awake at banquets. It's Lucius Annaeus Seneca, philosopher, playwright, and advisor to Emperor Nero. But tonight, he doesn't write for power. He writes for a friend. His asterisk letters to Lucilius asterisk are far more than philosophical advice. They are nightly manuals for sleeping with a calm soul. In letter 92, Seneca writes, let sleep find you occupied with something good, not chasing empty pleasures or groundless furs. For him, insomnia wasn't lack of tiredness, it was excess mental disorder. And his remedy was ethical clarity before rest. Today, amid our hyperconnectivity, these words resonate with new urgency. Seneca lived in a court where life hung by a thread, where a whisper could cost you your head. And yet, oh, he slept. How? Because each night he practiced what he called the day's review with kindness. He didn't scourge himself for errors, he examined them like a physician examining a wound, with care and purpose. What flaw did I correct today? He'd ask. What virtue did I cultivate? This evaluation wasn't moralistic, it was therapeutic. At bedtime, he didn't carry the weight of failures, but the lightness of self-awareness. In letter 83, he confesses, I do not fear death, but I would fear the night if I hadn't lived the day well. That sentence holds a powerful secret. Peaceful sleep is born of a clear conscience. And that conscience, is cultivated at dusk, not at dawn. In an age without clocks, Seneca marked the day's end with an intimate ritual. He'd extinguish lamps one by one, and with each flame, release a worry. What you cannot resolve today, or isn't yours tonight, he wrote. This light metaphor was his way of teaching non-attachment. He knew the sleepless mind doesn't suffer from lack of ideas, but from excess possession. We possess problems that aren't ours, or emotions that have passed, conversations that never happened. Seneca proposed a kind of a stoic emptying. Before bed, let go of everything that doesn't contribute to peace. Not with force, but with grace. Imagine doing this today. As you lie down, turn off not just the lights, but unnecessary thoughts. In that gradual darkening, you'd find the same silence Seneca found in his Roman nights. Seneca also understood the body. Though a philosopher, he didn't despise the flesh. He knew sleep isn't just mental, it's physical. So he advised a light dinner, a brief evening walk, and above all, avoiding intense conversations before bed. The mind needs transition, he wrote, and not abrupt jumps from noise to silence. This practical wisdom, almost modern, reveals his holistic approach. Philosophy doesn't live in abstraction, it lives in daily gestures. His bed wasn't a place to solve the empire, it was a sanctuary to regenerate the man. And in that regeneration, there was humility. Because he recognized that without rest, neither virtue nor reason can flourish. So his message is clear: care for your night, because from it your tomorrow is born. And a poorly slept tomorrow is a day surrendered to chaos. Years before his forced suicide, ordered by Nero, Seneca wrote, "A death comes to all, but only the wise know how to live until the last breath, and sleep until the last dream." This sentence, written in the shadow of his own end, is a nightly legacy. Because it reminds us that sleeping well isn't a luxury, it's an act of courage. It's telling the world, I've done what I could. Now, I rest. In his letters, Seneca doesn't promise nights without thoughts. He promises nights without terror. And in that lies his genius, transforming fear into acceptance, disorder into order, wakefulness into rest. So when we read him today, we don't read a dead man. We read a bedfellow, who, from ancient Rome, whispers, close your eyes, it's enough for today." Episode 3. Epictetus and the Art of Letting Go Before Bed. In a small school in Nicopolis, Greece, around 100 CE, a man limped behind a wooden chair, while his students listened in silence at dusk. It was Epictetus, a freed slave, Stoic philosopher, and master of the art of release. His life hadn't been easy. Born in Hierapolis, sold into slavery in Rome, then exiled. But precisely because of that, he understood the power of renunciation. "It's not what happens to you that matters," he said, "but what you do with it." And at nightfall, he taught his students a crucial exercise: identify what you don't control, and surrender it to the night. For Epictetus, insomnia was a symptom of illusion, believing everything must be resolved before sleep. And his cure was a simple question: does this depend on me? Epictetus wrote no books. His teachings reached us through his student Arian, or in the asterisk discourses asterisk and the asterisk Enchiridion star. But his voice still echoes in every nightly council. When you go to bed, he said, leave at the door all others' opinions, offences, and expectations. This image is powerful, the bed a sacred space, into which only the essential enters. No rumors, no comparisons, nothing that doesn't nourish the soul. For him, sleep was an act of freedom, because only those who drop mental chains can truly rest. And in that freedom lies true wealth. Imagine, before bed, making this pause. Oh, what am I carrying that isn't mine? Maybe it's a criticism, an emotional debt, an unkept promise. Hand it to the darkness, not as surrender, but as wisdom. Epictetus taught that the mind is like a house. If you enter with mud on your feet, you'll dirty everything. So before bed, clean your thoughts. This metaphor was his version of mental hygiene. It wasn't about emptying the mind, but ordering it. Store worries in their drawer, not throwing them away, but not leaving them on the bed. What you can't change tonight doesn't deserve your attention, he'd say. And he'd add, sleep is a duty, because you need strength to live virtuously tomorrow. Thus, rest wasn't laziness, it was ethical preparation. In a world that glorifies burnout, this perspective is revolutionary. Because it returns sleep to us as an act of respect toward ourselves and the life we wish to live. One night, a student asked him, Master, how do you sleep so peacefully, having suffered so much? Epictetus smiled and replied, because I don't confuse what has happened to me with who I am. This distinction is key. Stoicism doesn't deny pain, it contextualizes it. And in doing so, it strips pain of its power to steal sleep. Before bed, Epictetus repeated, I am free in my judgment. Everything else is external. This phrase was his shield against anxiety. Because he knew that as long as his will was in order, nothing could disturb him. Today, you can do the same. Before closing your eyes, remember, you are not your failures, your doubts, or your mistakes. You are your capacity to choose, or even the choice to rest. And in that choice lies your peace. Epictetus slept in a minimal room, with a blanket, a water jug, and a book. Nothing more. But his wealth lay elsewhere, in the clarity of his purpose. He knew sleep isn't an escape, it's conscious rest. And so, every night was a small act of fidelity to himself. Don't sleep to flee the day, he warned, sleep to honor it. This intention transforms the act of lying down. It's no longer a fall, it's a surrender. And when you surrender with awareness, the body responds. The heart calms. The breath softens. The mind stills. Thus, Epictetus' teaching transcends time. Letting go isn't losing, it's making space for what truly matters. And at night, what matters is sleeping in peace. Episode 4. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who wrote at night. 170 CE. In the cold military camp along the Danube, as his legions rest beneath icy stars, an emperor sits with a bronze lamp and opens a leather-bound notebook. It's Marcus Aurelius, the last of Rome's of 5 good emperors, and the most faithful of Stoics. Despite his crown, he's not writing battle orders tonight. He's writing for himself. His *Meditations* are an intimate journal, composed in the darkest moments of his reign: plagues, betrayals, frontier wars. But in those pages, there's no despair. There's discipline. And a silent lesson that even one who carries the world can learn to sleep in serenity if he orders his mind before bed. Marcus Aurelius believed night was the perfect time to return to oneself. In Book 4 of his *Meditations*, he writes, when you rise at dawn, remember that living as a human being is what's yours to do. And when you go to sleep, give thanks for what you've lived. This cycle, conscious action by day and gratitude by night, was his compass. He didn't seek perfection. He sought coherence. He knew imperial insomnia didn't come from battles, but from inner disconnection. So each night, before bed, he practiced what we'd now call a Stoic review, revising his actions, cleansing his intention, renewing his commitment to virtue. Thus, his bed, turned into a soul's trench, became a place of reconciliation, not combat. Imagine the weight of ruling an empire and still writing, "And nothing is mine except my judgments." This sentence, born in camp solitude, reveals the core of his nightly wisdom. Marcus Aurelius understood that true power isn't controlling the world, it's governing the mind. And as he lay down, he did so with deep conviction. What I can't change tonight, isn't my concern until dawn. Freed from that illusion of control, his body found rest. Not through ignorance, but through acceptance. Today, you don't command legions, but you may carry responsibilities that keep you awake. Marcus' lesson is clear. Before sleep, stop being the general and return to being human. In his *Meditations*, Marcus Aurelius repeats an idea like a mantra: everything is ephemeral. Glory, fears, insults all fade. This perspective, far from pessimistic, was liberating. Because remembering life's transience stripped nightly worries of urgency. Will this matter in 10 years? In 10 days? He'd ask. And if the answer was no, he let it go. This practice of relativization is a Stoic antidote to rumination. Because the sleepless mind often magnifies the small and forgets the essential. As you lie down, you can do the same. View your thoughts from the distance of time. You'll see many don't deserve your bed. So the emperor teaches us that sleeping well is wisely choosing what earns your final attention of the day. Marcus Aurelius died far from Rome, in that same Danube camp. But his final nights weren't filled with fear. Because he trained his mind for farewell every time he lay down. In sleep, he wrote, you imitate the dead. But in waking, you are reborn. This metaphor isn't morbid, it's hopeful. Because it turns each night into a small death, and each morning into a rebirth. And if you live this way, With that cyclical awareness, sleep stops being feared. It becomes sacred. So the philosopher-emperor doesn't just leave us a book. He leaves us a ritual. A way to close your eyes with gratitude and open them with purpose. And in those two gestures lies all the wisdom to sleep and live or like a Stoic. Episode 5. The Stoic Night in the Modern World. Today, in 2025, we live in an age of hyperstimulation. Screens bombard us until the last minute. Social media compares us. Work chases us in our pockets. And yet, the desire to sleep in peace remains. The good news is Stoic wisdom hasn't gotten old. It's adapted. Because its principles, the distinction between what's controllable and uncontrollable, daily review, acceptance of the present, are more relevant than ever. Imagine applying Zeno's ritual with a digital journal or Epictetus' question before turning off your phone. Does this depend on me? It's not about mimicking the past, but updating its essence. Because sleeping well doesn't require time travel, it requires awareness. Modern neuroscientists have found that nighttime rumination activates the amygdala and blocks deep sleep. Curiously, the Stoics already knew this, without brain scanners. Their intuition was precise. The mind must release to rest. Today, therapies like REBT and acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, echo these ideas. But you don't need a therapist to begin. Just 5 minutes before bed, breathe, review your day without judgment, or identify what you don't control, and surrender it to the night. This gesture, as old as philosophy itself, can calm your nervous system. Because Stoic wisdom isn't theory, it's practice. And practice begins in bed. Imagine a modern routine inspired by Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. At dusk, you walk without headphones or watching the sky. At bedtime, you write 3 lines: what you did well, what you could improve, and what you'll release tonight. You turn off notifications, not just on your phone, but in your mind. Not to escape the world, but to return to it better tomorrow. This isn't utopia. It's a real possibility. Because Stoicism doesn't demand perfection, only intention. And that intention transforms the night. From a mental battlefield into a garden of stillness. So modern Stoicism isn't practiced in the painted porch, but in the bedroom. The practice is in the pause before sleep. The biggest obstacle to good sleep today isn't external noise. It's internal noise, expectations, cue big questions like, why? And what if? The Stoics called these impressions. And they taught us to question them before bed. Is it true? Is it useful? Does it depend on me? 3 questions that can disarm hours of insomnia. Because much of what keeps us awake isn't real, it's interpretation. Applying this Stoic filter, you reclaim power over your mind. Not to control it, but to liberate it. So the modern night can be Stoic, if you choose to inhabit it with awareness. And that choice begins with a simple sigh, and enough for today. Every night, you are heir to Zeno, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. Not by blood, but by choice. Because you choose to review instead of ruminate, release instead of cling, give thanks instead of demand. This inheritance needs no temples, only a moment of silence before sleep. And in that moment, you connect with a tradition of serenity that has survived empires, plagues, and wars. Because peaceful sleep isn't a luxury, it's a human right. And Stoic wisdom is its key. So as you close your eyes tonight, you're not alone. You're accompanied by centuries of philosophers who, like you, chose to sleep with their soul in order and their heart at peace. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the Stoic secrets to better sleep. If this narration brought you calm, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and tap the bell so you never miss our next episode. May every night be a refuge for you, and every sleep be an act of wisdom. And may you wake renewed, like a modern Stoic. See you next time. Sweet dreams.